The knock wasn't mine. I just happened to be closest to the cedar door when somebody rapped 3 times, quick and bright, the way delivery guys do when they're juggling too many stops. Steam bled along the ceiling. Laughter ricocheted off tile and glass. Someone turned the music down. "Ethan, grab it," Tyler called, sloshing his beer. I set my towel over the bench, crossed the warm floor, and pulled the handle. 4 women stepped in from the corridor's blue light. Perfume hit first, sweet, candied, almost childlike. Then the cold night air riding their coats. The one in front smiled with professional brightness. "Hi, gentlemen." And the third in line lifted her face. "Lena, my fiancée." Her eyes flickered, a little flinch of recognition, and then, like a trained reflex, she tried to rearrange her features into nothing. No surprise, no shame, just a smooth blank. I heard somebody behind me whisper, "No way." Another guy started to laugh and then choked on it. I didn't move. The world thinned to the space between her mouth and mine, the half-second when truth decides whether to step forward or hide. "Keep watching," someone joked weakly. It only made the moment uglier. Keep watching. It only gets deeper. I closed the door because I needed something to do with my hands. The steam felt obscene now, like fog over a car crash. Lena's gaze slid off me, found a corner of the floor, a seam in the tiles. She was wearing a dark coat, nothing flashy. The ends of her hair were damp from the sleet outside. A flawless stranger's smile moved across her face and didn't touch her eyes. "Wrong suite?" I heard myself say. The lead woman glanced at her, then at me, measuring the temperature in the room. "We can step back out if the timing's off." "It's off," I said. Silence. Heat hummed. My friends had that frozen, guilty look men get when the joke dies and nobody knows the rules anymore. Tyler started in with an apology that wasn't for me. "Ethan, we booked through the desk, man. We didn't." Lena finally spoke, soft. "Ethan, can we—" "Not here," I said. She nodded once. The lead woman touched her elbow, a gentle nudge toward the hall, but Lena didn't move. We had picked china patterns last Sunday. We had a seating chart on the kitchen table marked up with sticky notes. We had a pastor who told us love was saying yes on ordinary Wednesdays. And now, on a very unordinary Wednesday, I was standing bare-chested in a rented spa watching my future split like a pane of glass hit by a pebble. People will ask later if there were signs. They'll say no one is that surprised. And I'll be honest. There were hairline cracks I painted over because the wall had to look perfect from the street. Back then, when Lena and I met, she said she did makeup. Freelance gigs for bridal parties, photo shoots, occasional night work when schedules were tight. The hours were jagged, but the hustle fit the story. America loves a grinder, and I loved thinking I was building a life with one. Sometimes she came home late with cash, said tips were better in person. Sometimes she came home wired and talkative, sometimes quiet, like she'd given her voice to too many people. I had questions, then I had wedding plans, and the plans ate the questions. The first time her phone buzzed at 1:40 a.m., and she said it was a last-minute reschedule for the morning, I believed her. The second time, I believed the exhaustion in her face more than the words. The third time, I counted to 10 and told myself that trust is a muscle you build or lose. I picked building. We'd booked the sauna for the guys because Tyler swore a night of heat, beer, and bad jokes would sand down my nerves. He meant well. He and the others had called the concierge and asked for a little entertainment, the way boys ask the ocean for a wave. You don't expect the wave to carry your house to shore. Lena and I looked at each other for the first real time since the door opened. I didn't see guilt. I saw a complicated math problem happening behind her eyes. Angles, exits, the choreography of saving face. She exhaled, and with it, the woman I loved seemed to hover just above her, trying to come back down. "Give us 5 minutes," I told the room. Tyler cleared his throat. "We'll, go cool off." He herded the guys toward the wet area, heads down like they were passing a funeral. The lead woman, still calibrating, leaned toward Lena. "Do you want—" "It's okay," Lena said, to her and to me and to the floor. "I'll talk to him." We stepped into the corridor. The door clicked shut behind us, and the music, mercifully, did not start again. Out here the air was thin and honest. The carpet swallowed our footsteps. "You knew this was my night," I said. "I didn't know it was your suite," she answered. And the way she said it, like a workable technical defense, told me too much. "How long?" She lifted a shoulder. It might have been a shrug. It might have been a tiny apology fighting to exist. "Ethan, people make choices. Before the wedding." "Don't," I said. "Don't make this about timing." Her mouth tightened. "Do you want me to lie? Do you want a story that makes you feel better for 48 hours, so you can get through speeches and cake?" I stared at the brass numbers on the wall across from us, as if any pattern in the universe could help me count my way back to the life I had when I walked up to that door. Behind it, my friends murmured. Somewhere, a compressor kicked on. In a week, we were supposed to promise each other ordinary Wednesdays. "Ethan," she said quietly, "can we go somewhere else to talk?" I looked at the door, then at her, and understood that somewhere else had been the problem all along. We didn't go anywhere else to talk. I told Lena to meet me at the parking garage in 10 minutes and walk the long way around the atrium, past glass balustrades and potted trees with leaves like polished leather. The hotel bar hummed with low conversations, little pockets of lives that weren't cracking open tonight. I envied the ease of strangers. In the garage, the cold had texture. My breath came out like white thread. I leaned on the hood of Tyler's SUV and counted the concrete seams in the wall until footsteps echoed. Lena approached with her hands deep in her coat, chin tucked as if the temperature were a secret between us. "I didn't plan for you to be there," she said. It was the last minute. "Job," I finished. "Call it what it is." Work her jaw worked once, like she was resetting something. I do what I have to do. There are sentences that land like doors closing. That one did. I could have asked how long, how many, whether there were rules about protection or boundaries or regulars. I could have asked if any of it had ever happened while I was waiting in our apartment, warming leftovers, letting the sitcom run until she texted that she was on her way. Instead, I asked the question I should have asked months ago. "Why didn't you tell me?" She took too long to answer. "Because you wanted a version of me that fit the invitations." I had nothing snappy to say to that. The cruel part was how reasonable it sounded, for both of us. We pick the angles we can live with, and then we decorate them. Back when we met, she did makeup at a photography studio in Grandview Heights. I'd gone there with my sister for headshots, because my mother wouldn't stop reminding us that professional photos open doors. Lena had a way of holding a brush like it was a conductor's baton, twirling people into confidence. I watched her line my sister's eyes and talk about light. She wasn't flirty. She was focused, efficient, funny in left turns. When I asked her out, she said she didn't date clients. I waited 2 weeks and went back for prints. She laughed and gave me her number on the back of the receipt. Dates were cheap and good. Food trucks on High Street, trivia nights where she knew every answer about 90s R&B, long walks in Schiller Park where she observed dogs the way I observed houses, imagining lives from small details. She was relentless about earning, piecing together gigs with names like bridal prep, prom run, evening touch-up. I liked the hustle. I grew up on stories about my grandfather working 2 jobs to get a third. When she said some nights ran late, I filed it next to "Beauty World is nuts" and didn't look closer. But there were signs, not just the buzzing phone at odd hours. Once, at a hardware store, I caught the cashier staring too long, more curious than hungry, like she recognized Lena and couldn't locate the context. Another time, we were at a sushi place near campus, and a man in a navy peacoat smiled at her with too much familiarity. She smiled back with too much neutrality. When I asked who it was, she said, "He thought I was someone else." I let it go because dinner tasted like simple happiness. Around month 8, Lena suggested we not post about each other online. "Privacy is safer," she said. "People are weird." She wasn't wrong. I'd seen co-workers turned into content against their will. But later, when we got engaged, and my aunt complained that she couldn't tag "the lucky lady," I felt the smallest stitch of doubt. I ignored it. The ring had cost me a year of saving, and it looked perfect on her hand. I wanted a life that looked the way that picture felt. When we booked the venue, we sat at our thrifted kitchen table and argued about linens like senators. We talked about vows, write our own, or go with tradition. Lena preferred traditional. "Simple," she said. "Clean." I loved that answer. It sounded like commitment without performance. It sounded like we were on the same page. But beneath the catalog planning, there were cash envelopes she tucked into a ceramic bowl, a separate phone she called her work line. The night she came home with a bruise the shape of a thumb and said she bumped into a light stand. I offered to go with her to gigs. She said clients wanted fewer cooks in the back room. Every time I almost pressed, the calendar threw another chore at me. Menu tasting, tux fitting, deposit deadlines. The momentum of a wedding can be a tide that carries you past reefs you should study. In the garage, memories arranged themselves into patterns I couldn't unsee. "How did it start?" I asked. "I took a booking through someone at the studio," she said. "Private. The money was... It solved problems quickly. Then it solved bigger ones." "What problems?" I said. Not out of curiosity, but to keep from saying you were the problem. She started to answer and stopped. "Things from before you," she said finally. "Debts. People." "People," I repeated, like a tourist learning a dangerous word. She lifted her eyes to mine, and for the first time since the sauna, I saw the woman I'd proposed to. Tired, proud, embarrassed by the math of her own life. "I wanted out," she said. "I thought the wedding would be the line. And then tonight was supposed to be routine. You were never supposed to open that door." "We were never supposed to live in separate stories," I said. A car eased past us, headlights washing the concrete in a cold tide. The driver found a spot and the engine ticked down. On some other floor, the bachelor night I'd agreed to was reforming around silence and bottled water. "I'm calling off the wedding," I said, and the sentence steadied me as it left my mouth. "Not because you're unclean, because we don't have the same truth." Lena swallowed. "Is there any way we talk first, tomorrow, with coffee and daylight and our clothes on?" My laugh surprised both of us. "We can talk," I said, "but not as a bride and groom on a countdown." That clock just stopped. She nodded like a defendant hearing a reasonable sentence. We stood there with the understanding cooling between us until words felt unnecessary. When she turned to go, she paused and said, "For what it's worth, Ethan." I loved the life we almost had. I watched her walk toward the elevator, a dark figure crossing a lit rectangle, and wondered when "almost" had become the truest word in my vocabulary. I didn't go back to the suite. Tyler texted twice, "You good?" And then what? And I let the bubbles time out into nothing. There was a lobby to cross, and I needed the kind of light only front desks and bad coffee provide. The concierge on duty wore a navy vest and the impenetrable calm of someone who has seen every variety of celebration and collapse. Her name tag said Maria. Her eyes said she already knew which kind tonight was. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked. "I need to confirm a service that was arranged for Suite 412, I said, hearing how bloodless I sounded. "Entertainment, 4 women." Her pause was brief, but not empty. "We book approved vendors for private events," she said carefully. "If there's an issue, I can make a note for management." "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. "Just tell me how it works. A number is called, someone coordinates, people show up at a door." "That is the outline," she said. "There are steps in between." "And names?" I asked. "We do not collect last names," she said, with the gentle firmness of a policy being ironed. "For discretion." I laughed once, without humor. "Discretion," I repeated, glancing toward the elevators where Lena had disappeared. "Do you vet the vendors?" "We verify they are licensed for hospitality services," she said. "Beyond that, adults make their own choices." Adults make their own choices. The sentence slid into the empty places inside me, with the tidy logic of a shelved book. I nodded and set my palm on the counter like I might steady myself on the edge of a dock. "If there's a charge on 412, put it on my tape," I said. My friends didn't know what they were ordering. Maria gave me the smallest tilt of her head, the kind service people use when they're trying to hand you back some dignity. "That's generous," she said. "I can split it." "Don't," I said. "Let it land in one piece." Outside, the night had shaved the city down to bone. I walked 3 blocks with no plan, then doubled back because a man without a destination becomes a man with a problem. At the corner of Broad and 3rd, a storefront church sang through a cracked window, a choir of 10 brave voices doing their best to repair the air. I stood there listening until a traffic light coughed me onward. At home, the apartment looked staged. Too clean, too composed, like it had been waiting to be photographed. The seating chart on the kitchen table stared up at me. Rows of names and little colored dots. Family, friends, co-workers, kids. When I pulled a chair, the legs scraped like a bad violin. I sat and found a pen and started crossing out tasks on our wedding checklist. Not because they were done, but because something in me needed to mark lines through promises. Call florist. Cancel cake tasting. Notify pastor. I could hear my mother's voice when I reached that one. She didn't sound angry in my imagination. She sounded tired. I called her anyway. She answered on the second ring, which means she'd been holding the phone. "Ethan," she said, skipping hello. "Everything all right, honey?" "Not tonight," I said. "Mom, I'm calling off the wedding." Silence gathered, soft, immense. "Are you safe?" she asked first. "I am," I said. She's not who I thought. There's work she's been doing, work I can't build a marriage on. My mother had been a nurse for 32 years. She knew how to ask the right amount and then stop. "Do you want me to come over?" she said. "No," I said. "I want you to sleep. Tomorrow I'll need you." "You always have me," she said, and let me go with a prayer that fit in one breath. When the phone was down, the apartment sounded like an aquarium. Mechanical hums, the thin burble of a neighbor's radiator clanking once per minute. I opened the laptop because being alone with my thoughts felt like walking a dark field without a fence. Emails waited from vendors, cheerful and transactional. I wrote to each with the same sentence stem, due to a change in circumstances, and let the rest arrange themselves into refunds, losses, and apologies. The venue would keep the deposit. The band would keep half. The photographer, out of human kindness, offered to refund everything except the engagement shoot. I typed "thank you" and meant it. At 1:17 a.m., my door buzzer trilled. For a second, my stomach convinced me it was Lena. I went to the intercom and said, "Who is it?" "It's me," Tyler said. "I brought, something." He climbed the stairs carrying 2 coffees and the face men wear when they're afraid they helped break a thing they can't fix. We sat at the kitchen table, and he pushed a cobalt blue mug toward me. "I didn't know," he said. "I would never—" "I know," I said. "You ordered noise and got a thunderclap." He winced. "When she walked in, I thought you were going to hit me or hug me. You didn't either." "I'm calibrating," I said, surprising myself with the accuracy of the word. We drank coffee like it was a task. Tyler looked at the seating chart, the X's through the checklist, the ring box perched on the counter like an unblinking eye. "What do you need?" he asked. "Tomorrow I'll need you to pick up suits and return them. I'll need you to call your cousin about the hotel block. I'll need you to not tell the group chat the details, only that it's off." He nodded like a man receiving orders he was relieved to have. "And tonight?" "Tonight, I need you to sit here so the walls don't learn how to talk," I said. We sat. After a while, he said, "Do you want to know how it happened?" "The booking?" "Not really," I said. "But tell me anyway." He described a concierge, a list of approved performers, a time slot, a flat rate. No names, just an arrival window. He thought he was doing the ancient, stupid kindness of men about to lose one of their own, to the rituals of vows. He didn't know the city is a small town with taller buildings that lives overlap in arterial ways. "Do you think she loved you?" he asked. The question so naked, it couldn't have been anything but honest. "I think she loved the idea of landing somewhere safe," I said. "I think I loved being that idea." The coffee cooled. The clock lurched past 2. Tyler stood and collected cups like he needed a chore to grant him absolution. At the door he said, "You're doing the right thing." "I don't know what that is yet," I said. "But I know what it isn't." When he was gone, I turned off lights until the apartment's edges softened. In the bedroom, I opened the nightstand and took out the vows I'd started and never finished. On ordinary Wednesdays, I had written at the top, and then scratched it out because it sounded like a line I stole. I folded the paper and slid it back where it came from. Some promises belonged to the people we almost were. By 3, the city had nothing left to say. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling collect the ghost of headlights. Sleep came like a witness, late and imperfect. Morning came like a plain envelope. No design, just an answer I didn't want to open. The ring box still sat on the counter, a dark square pacing the kitchen. My phone buzzed at 8:12. Lena, can we talk? Daylight, public place. I chose a diner on Parsons where bad coffee is a boundary and the servers call you hun. She was already there, hair pulled back, no makeup, both phones face down beside a glass of water. She stood when I arrived, like standing might count as respect. Thank you, she said. For what? For not exploding last night. For letting me say something now. A waitress in pink sneakers slid us menus we didn't open. The clatter of a grill, eggs and onions, the steadiness of a Thursday that didn't care about ours. I put my hands around the mug to remind them what steady looked like. How long? I asked. A year and change, she said. Not every week. Sometimes a run of weeks, then none. With who? Strangers, she said, then caught herself. Clients. Through the studio. Through a person who used to be at the studio. He brokered. He's not a pimp, she added quickly. And the fact that she felt the need to clarify printed its own headline. Think of it like private bookings. I kept the work separate. I thought I could retire it clean. And marry me over the line, I said. She didn't argue. The waitress poured coffee and asked if we wanted food. We both shook our heads. When she left, Lena reached for the second phone and then didn't, as if touching it might electrocute the point she was trying to make. I wasn't playing you, she said. I was playing time, paying things off, making sure I had options. What things? Debt, she said. Stupid layered stuff from years back. A car that died hard, a roommate who left me holding a lease, a hospital bill I ignored, and it multiplied. I know that sounds like a brochure. It's not. It's just math that got teeth. I let the words sit. The diner mirror across from us gathered the picture. Two tired people rehearsing versions of themselves that might survive the day. Were you going to tell me before the wedding? I told myself I would, she said. Then I told myself I would after. Then I told myself I'd never need to because it would be over. Last night was supposed to be routine. I was careful. I always was. Testing? I asked, blunt as a wrench. Protection? She nodded, color rising in her face. Always. I have paperwork. She stopped, understood the insult in offering proof, and lowered her eyes. I know that's not the point. It's not, I said. But I'm relieved anyway. We sat in the low hum of other people's breakfasts. A kid in a soccer jersey counted jelly packets. A man in a suit read a paper like it was still a thing that could save him. Lena wrapped her fingers around her mug and took a breath that sounded like an apology rehearsing. I loved being with you, she said. Not the Instagram word, the sidewalk word. Groceries, laundry, the dumb arguments about whose turn it was to break down boxes. I wanted that. I also wanted the past not to follow me into it. She looked up. I was wrong about how those wants work. You were wrong about what marriage is, I said. It's not a witness protection program. She winced, but nodded. Are you sure it has to be canceled? Could we postpone? Could we call it a long engagement while I put the rest behind me? It sounded almost reasonable, like a payment plan for trust. I ran the idea across the inside of my head and felt each snag. Postpone to which truth? I asked. To the one where I know, or the one where I don't? Either way, we'd be sitting across tables like this one, pretending the calendar can fix character. She looked past me to the window, to the plain street, to a dog straining at a leash. Then, what do you need from me? Honesty I don't have to fish for, I said. And the ring. The ring line landed between us without echo. She reached into her coat pocket and placed the band on the tablecloth as if setting down a small, sleeping thing. No tears, no speech. Just recognition that some returns aren't exchanges. "I'll cover my half of anything we lose," she said. "You don't need to," I said. "The deposit, the band. Their tuition. For what?" "For learning to interrogate the silence in a story I want," I said. We paid separately. Outside, she hugged herself against the wind and studied me like a map she wished she'd learned to read sooner. "Do I have your permission to tell people it was me?" she asked. "Not details, just that I broke it." "You don't need my permission to tell the truth," I said. "But you have it." She nodded once, then again, an agreement with the air. "For what it's worth," she said, quiet as a receipt printing. "When I was with you, I was with you." "I believe the part of you that believes that," I said. "I don't believe the rest." We parted on the sidewalk like co-workers after a layoff, careful, kind, a little stunned. I watched her turn the corner, then took the long walk home because short routes felt dishonest. At the apartment, my father's name lit my screen. "You tell your mother last night," he said. It wasn't a question. "I did," I said. "She told me not to call because I'd make it worse," he said. "I'm calling because I know I might. You all right?" "I will be," I said. He exhaled. "I'm proud of you for not blowing smoke up your own chimney. Compassion doesn't require you to be a fool." "I keep thinking about Pastor's line," I said. "Saying yes on ordinary Wednesdays. Then say no on an extraordinary Thursday," my father said. "The approval I used to try to earn appearing like a chair offered when you didn't realize you were standing. Do you want me at the venue with you? I can help you look a man in the eye while you lose a deposit." "Tomorrow," I said. "Today, I'm writing emails." I drafted a message to guests that said the minimum with a maximum of dignity. "The wedding is canceled. We are grateful for your love and support. Please cancel travel arrangements. We apologize for the inconvenience." I hit send and watched digital empathy bloom, pings and hearts and "Are you okay?" Then turned the phone face down and let the room be simple. By late afternoon, the pastor returned my voicemail. "Ethan," he said, "my office door is open. Remember, grace is free, trust is earned. Confusing the two is how people drown." I wrote that down because I needed phrases with bones. At dusk, I boxed the favors we'd wrapped last week and set them by the door for returning. The sky over Columbus thinned to pewter. I thought about vows folded in the nightstand and decided not to reread them. Some words are truer as ashes. When sleep finally came, it was cleaner than the night before. I had made a decision, and the decision had begun to make me back. By Friday morning, the city wore its work face again, and so did I. I shaved like a man meeting someone important and met my father at the venue at 10. The coordinator, a woman with a clipboard smile, invited us to sit in a side office that smelled like starch and artificial lilies. She had our contract printed with yellow flags, marking the places that would hurt. "We'll keep the deposit," she said gently, as if tone might make arithmetic merciful. "The date is too close for us to rebook." My father didn't posture. He took off his cap and folded it on his knee. "We understand," he said. "Tell us what paperwork you need." There's a dignity to losing cleanly. I signed where the flags told me. The pen felt heavier than it should. Out in the lobby, a florist wheeled in white hydrangeas for someone else's Saturday. My father watched the cart roll by and said, "Someone's getting a good day." It landed like a blessing for strangers. We walked the sidewalk in a winter sun. He asked if I wanted breakfast. I said yes, because yes felt like a bridge to the rest of the day. Over eggs, he didn't offer theories about women or fate. He talked about brakes on his truck and the new cashier at the hardware store who couldn't count change if the drawer was singing to him. I realized he was giving me ordinary on purpose, covering the wound with routine so the air wouldn't sting. Back home, I opened the group chat titled "Groomsmen, No Drama," and wrote a version of the truth anyone could carry without dropping. Wedding is canceled. I'm okay. Please cancel travel and tuxes. No details in the chat. Call me if you need to. The replies came fast and tender. Tyler texted separately. Suits are already back. Hotel block released. I told the guys, keep your mouths and memes closed. I sent a thumbs up and meant it. At noon, Pastor sent a short text. Office is open. I went. He had the face of a man who'd sat with all kinds of endings. He poured coffee that tasted like penance and said, "You can forgive someone and still not marry them. Those are different sacraments." I think I wanted the wedding to fix the parts of me that still needed praise, I said. The parts that felt like I'm only enough if I carry someone else to shore. He nodded, eyes kind. Marriage is two swimmers who know their own stroke, not two people trying to hide in one coat. We sat with that. Before I left, he slid a small index card across the desk. On it, he'd written a sentence I didn't know I needed. Mercy is free, boundaries are earned. In the afternoon, I faced the avalanche of small things a canceled life leaves behind. I carried boxes of favors to the car. I called the bakery. The woman on the line said she'd see if she could resell the cake layers and sounded genuinely sorry when she couldn't. I emailed the band. The drummer replied with a heart and a note about playing in bars where couples called it off mid-song. The world, it turns out, contains more versions of this story than any of us like to imagine. At 3, the concierge from 2 nights ago, Maria, left a voicemail. Mr. Mercer, just a courtesy call. We've removed that vendor from our list. It's not a judgment, it's a boundary. If you need documentation for refunds, I can provide a note. I saved the message without playing it twice. I didn't need revenge dressed as policy, but the line, not a judgment, a boundary, found a place next to the pastor's card. The vocabulary of grown-ups was finally making sense. Toward evening, my doorbell sounded again. It wasn't Lena. It was an envelope by the mat with my name in a hand I knew. Inside, the ring, returned in the same velvet as if nothing had happened. No note. Just the object we'd both tried to make holy and couldn't. I put it on the table, not the counter, because tables are where bargains are made and broken. I called her because silence felt like a performance I didn't believe in. She answered on the second ring. Thank you, I said. For what? Her voice had the flannel sound of someone trying not to fray. For returning it without theater. She exhaled. I gave notice at the studio. She said, I'm leaving the work, not for you, for me. I hope you do, I said, and heard how it wasn't permission and wasn't applause. Just a wish for someone who'd shared my address in a life that turned out to be rented. That night, I went through the apartment, touching the things that would stay and the things that wouldn't. 2 wine glasses wrapped in paper and slid into a box. A stack of RSVP cards I'd never throw away angry because paper deserves better than that. The seating chart, which I folded once and then again and placed in the bin like a flag being retired. At 10, Tyler texted a picture of the sauna door with the caption, "Closed for maintenance." I wrote back, So am I. He sent a laughing emoji, and then, a beat later, proud of you. I let the screen go dark and sat in the quiet, not empty but available, like a room waiting for the right kind of noise. Sleep came sooner. Grief, when it knows its edges, tires you honestly. I'd paid tuition to learn what I wouldn't unlearn. Somewhere, white hydrangeas were doing their small work for someone else's yes. I wished them a lifetime of ordinary Wednesdays, and meant it. The first Saturday I didn't have a wedding to get to, I cleaned the oven. It felt like the right kind of penance. Dull, honest, within my power. Grease surrendered to patience. Music played low from a station that didn't ask me to have feelings. When I finished, the kitchen smelled like lemon and relief. I took the seating chart from the bin, unfolded it once, and slid it into a folder labeled taxes, because that's what it had become, a document of what things cost. People were kind in practical ways. My mother brought soup and left it on the stove with a note. Heat slowly. It tastes better if you don't rush it. My father called when he had nothing to say, which was everything I needed. Tyler replaced the light in my hallway and pretended it was complicated so I wouldn't notice he was checking on me. The pastor texted me a photo of his index card. Mercy is free, boundaries are earned. I saved it as my lock screen until I didn't need training wheels for my own decisions. On a gray Tuesday, I went back to the jeweler. The counter was the same immaculate glass. The diamond under it sparkled like it didn't understand weather. The manager remembered me with the careful warmth of someone who sees engagement rings both arrive and return. I'd like to sell it back, I said. He tapped keys, did math, offered a number that was smaller than I wanted and more than I expected. We can cut you a check, he said, or give store credit for future. Check, I said, and then surprise both of us. Actually, can you reset the stone into a pendant? Something simple, no rush. For yourself? He asked, neutral as a courtroom. For my sister, I said. She's due in June, a baby gift for the woman who has always told me the truth. He nodded, and the sawtooth feeling in my chest smoothed a little. We picked a plain setting that didn't look like a second life so much as a true one. When I left, the receipt in my pocket felt lighter than paper. Weeks learned how to stack without collapsing. I started running again, the kind where your lungs complain until they don't, and the river keeps you from lying about distance. Work got busy because it always does if you let it. I said yes to a Saturday my father needed help replacing a porch rail for a neighbor. We measured twice, cut once, and still got something a half-inch wrong. He smiled and said, "Imperfection builds character into a porch." And I believed him. One morning in April, I saw Lena at the farmer's market. It was early and the stalls still smelled like wet wood. She stood at a table of strawberries, hair in a knot, a canvas bag on her shoulder with a logo from a salon I recognized. For a second, we both did the freeze, that millisecond slow motion when the present and the past argue about who gets the steering wheel. Then she lifted a hand, not a wave, more like a small permission slip to exist near each other. "Hi, Ethan," she said. "Hi, Lena." She looked ordinary, not the before and after kind of ordinary, just daylight human. No armor, no angles. "I got a job at that salon on High," she said, like giving a weather report. "W-2, health insurance, bad break room coffee." I cut back to one phone, I said, because sometimes confession is a kind of politeness. We stood with the fruit between us, the scent of sweetness and dirt somewhere I could live. "I'm sorry," she said, not theatrical, not fishing, not for getting caught. for thinking I could carry two selves into one promise. I'm sorry I wanted the picture more than the truth, I said. That didn't help either of us. A vendor called out prices like he was auctioning off summer. We stepped aside so someone with a stroller could pass. Are you okay? She asked. I'm building okay, I said. It's slower than I want and better than I deserve. She smiled at that. Small, real. I'm 6 weeks into a class at the community college, she said. Business bookkeeping. Numbers are less scary when you don't run from them. I'm glad, I said. And I meant it in the quiet way that doesn't require applause. We didn't hug. We didn't promise friendship we couldn't keep. We just did the simplest thing two people can do after a fire. We didn't pour gasoline. After she left, I bought strawberries and eggs and a bunch of tulips because the apartment had been honest with me and deserved color. On the walk home, I passed the hotel where everything changed. The lobby doors hissed open for a couple with matching suitcases and a child dragging a stuffed bear by one ear. They looked like they were going somewhere that would be fine. I sent that family a private blessing the way you do for strangers you'll never see again. May your ordinary be enough. That afternoon, I fixed the loose cabinet hinge that had clicked since Thanksgiving. I answered an email from the drummer who'd written me a kind note. His band was playing at a bar on Parsons, so I went. The room was small and friendly. Couples swayed, some good, some terrible, all correct. Tyler showed up late with a grin and 2 waters. Maintenance closed, he said, clinking bottles, reopened with upgrades. We laughed, and it wasn't brittle. At home, I took the vows from the nightstand for the last time. I didn't burn them. I folded the paper into a smaller square and slid it into a book I love. A reminder that words can be both beautiful and insufficient. I washed the strawberries, put half in a bowl, froze the rest for later. It felt like a metaphor, even if it didn't need to be. When sleep came, the shape of the room was familiar and kind. No doors waited to ambush me. The ceiling received the quiet with gratitude. And in the morning, Wednesday arrived like the most radical miracle I knew. Ordinary, intact, ready to be said yes to without ceremony.